Wonderful. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Center for Creativity. My name is Anina Collier. I'm the Dean of the Center for Creativity, and we are so happy you are here for a really special night. When we watch movies and TV shows, we're so zeroed in on the plot and the actors that we may not even think about the stunt professionals whose job it is to get thrown across a room or lit on fire and who make everything so exciting. Tonight, we get to hear from one of those professionals. Andy Rusk is a stunt coordinator and a stuntman, and he gets hit on the head for money in TV and television. His career highlights include the Hunger Games franchise, The Walking Dead, FX's Atlanta, Chad Powers, and most recently, our hometown favorite, The Lowdown. You'll have a chance to see Andy do some demo as well as ask him questions. But before I turn it over to him, Andy, I want to thank you for volunteering your time tonight. He is doing this for free because he is interested in helping support film and television in the community here in Tulsa. And as many of you know, he also offered a stunt workshop for industry professionals earlier today. It was so fun. If you walked by the Center for Creativity, you'd see all these people throwing punches. It looked like there was a big bar brawl or something going on in here. But he did that again to support filmmaking and storytelling here in Tulsa because he believes in what's happening in our community. So Andy, thank you so much. We really appreciate you being here tonight. And let's see, is there anything else I need to mention? I don't think so. Let's give a big welcome to Andy Rusk.
Check, check. Cool. I don't have a lot to demo, so we're gonna, they won't let me fall off of that, and the fire marshal wouldn't be too keen on me, like, bringing the flamethrowers out. So I'm gonna show you guys a reel that I have. It's a couple years old, but it's some stuff that I've done and kind of what I do, and I've done a lot more since, but it's just a little visual aid, and it's about 2 minutes long. Let's see if this works. Baby. All right. A few years ago, anyways. But yeah, I'm a stuntman. And is anybody here in the film, part of the film industry that's going on here in Tulsa? Yeah, I got a few. Anybody here in like the performing arts in general? Yeah, very good, very cool. I got a couple of my guys here that were part of the workshop. I don't really we don't do a lot of TED Talks in the stunt business, so I don't really have anything prepared except that I've been doing this for a long time, and it's a subject that's dear to my heart, and so I'm able to talk about it for a while. And so I thought I would kind of maybe start with, we'll go to some questions here before long, but I thought I would kind of start with like the common misconception about stuntmen and stunt performers is that we're all crazy, right? That we're daredevils, that we have some kind of death wish, and we're always doing the most dangerous thing that we can. And it's not really true. Yes, you saw myself and a few other guys lit on fire, and when you're on fire, you're kind of, unfortunately, actually on fire, and it's not pleasant. But it's not the most dangerous thing that you even saw in the video. There is a tradition of this, like the thrill show daredevil. Like if you guys, I don't know that anybody in this room is old enough to remember like a guy named Joey Chitwood, who used to barnstorm around the Midwest, jumping cars at county fairs. And Joey Chitwood and his family did that for decades. And people paid money to go to the county fair and watch Joey Chitwood jump a car into another car, jump a car into a hay bale that was on fire. And it was this live show, thrill show experience that's been a part of of entertainment, the entertainment industry for a long time. I mean, theoretically, we go back to ancient Rome, right? And the gladiators. We've been watching dangerous things as a way of entertaining ourselves for a long time. And there are people still today that do live show, thrill show events as entertainment. One of my guys here, Cowboy Kenny Bartram, is one of the legendary motorcycle jumpers, and he had made it not just. Most people, if they jump a motorcycle, it's a bad decision. For Kenny, it was a career. Is it dangerous? Absolutely. You know, he's full of metal. But it's a kind of thing that that people line up to see, and I don't know why, right? Like. Everybody, no matter where you're from, every culture on the planet has like a performing arts tradition. And, like that predates, our communication, written communication. Before we could write stuff down, and before we even necessarily had all of the language we needed to tell a story, we would stand up and act something out around the fire, right? Around the fire at night, we would get up and we would act out our stories. What happened to me that day? What did I dream about last night? What do I want to do tomorrow? What are we going to do on the hunt? What am I going to do to my enemies, And so this way of storytelling through performing arts, I know it's a stretch, jumping a motorcycle, performing arts, but it's there, I promise you. It's this thinnest thread that I could ever connect, but it's there, I promise you. And so and not everything that you saw, hopefully, was like some abhorrent act of violence. There's a lot of actual like comedy in my reel, a lot of silly things that I work on. All these Santa Clauses getting shot in the head. I don't even want to talk about that show, but. I've in my background, in my career of simulating violence, which is one of violence is a big cultural export in our country, and I'm part of the problem. I do violence on television, pretend violence, and people see it, kids see it. That's something I got to wrestle with on my own terms. But as more of in a performing arts space as opposed to a daredevil space, acting out these things as part of a storytelling tradition goes back a long ways. We know that in the Roman Colosseum, it wasn't all just feeding your enemies to the lions. They reenacted historical battles, right? They told stories through simulated violence. They weren't actually all out there killing each other. Most of the gladiatorial combat that is preserved archaeologically, what we know is probably had much more in common with like WWF than actually putting people to death. Those guys were highly paid athletes and they lived a long time. So it probably wasn't the most brutal, violent thing you can imagine. So yes, you can be a daredevil and also become a movie and television stuntman. This is what Kenny's doing with his career. He's given up jumping motorcycles for something much safer, like getting in shootouts and getting shot with flamethrowers and fist fights, things like that. But fundamentally what we do, more so than cheat death, quote unquote, for entertainment, is we fool the camera. We exist to play a trick on the audience. And the trick is, here's this thing that looks dangerous. This fall, this fight, this act of violence. Here's this thing that appears to be dangerous. And in fact, it's safe enough that if I call up my buddy Aura over here, Aura Brown, and say, hey, Aura, I got this thing. You want to come do it? Instead of thinking that he might have to fill out his last will and testament, he says, oh yeah, that sounds like fun. And he comes to work and he puts some pads on, and then I push him down the stairs or whatever we're going to do that day. And so in that way, being a stuntman and the stunt business is more of what I would consider to be a special effect. You guys, everybody's familiar with the world of special effects, and nowadays it almost exclusively means like computer stuff, and maybe, hopefully not too soon, but eventually AI stuff, sort of replacing the artistry of people that once upon a time would paint, backdrops by hand, or create miniatures or puppets. But in a way, stunt work is kind of one of the earliest special effects, and it's an old school practical special effect. And to illustrate, I'm going to bring up something called the cowboy switch. You guys ever heard of the cowboy switch? Yeah. Okay. Cool. Do you know what the cowboy switch is?
It was just like having a stuntman fill in for the main actor.
Very, very good. There's something more. Yes, when you put in the stunt double for the main actor, it can be a cowboy switch, but specifically the cowboy switch. Now, there are guys that call it a Texas switch. That's wrong, because when we started doing it, they didn't make movies in Texas yet. Now they make all the movies in Texas, but at the time, all the movies were made in LA, and yes, there used to be cowboys in LA. And when the cowboys would get paid, they would go into the city, and they would get drunk. That's what cowboys do. And they would pass out in the alleys and streets, and the producers would come around in the morning, if they were shooting a Western, and they'd kick the passed out cowboys and say, hey, you want to be in a movie, right? And they'd take the cowboys out to the valley or out to the desert, and they'd pay them $5 and a box lunch to be in a John Ford Western, because they needed guys, in the background galloping on horseback. And who better to get than a bunch of hungover cowboys, right? They were willing to work for $5 and a box lunch. This is before SAG-AFTRA, before the unions. And it caught on pretty quick that if you were a cowboy working in LA, that was a thing you could do on the side. And it was fun. It was typically less work than cowboying, right? And the pay was usually a little better. And sometimes you got to do fun stuff like fall off your horse, right? Which is not super fun, but they would pay you a little extra every time you fell off your horse. It's called a bump. It's a little bump in the pay, right? You just hoped that when they picked you, that you got to be a cowboy or a cavalryman, because if they decided to dress you as an Indian, as a Plains Indian, you didn't have a lot of clothes on, typically, and so, pardon the expression, but in those days, they were known as bare-ass Indian Falls, and it was kind of what you dreaded having to do. That was back in the days when also typically you'd have white guys in horrific brown makeup doubling Native Americans and, or playing Native Americans or Hispanic persons, or is in those days. Anyways, I digress. So in the silver screen era, I'm going to use as an example a guy named Harold Lloyd. Harold Lloyd was a contemporary of like Buster Keaton and Charlie Chaplin, and he was a great physical comedian. And Harold Lloyd, to his dying day, insisted that he did all his own stunts in all his films. And he did most of them. But he had a double named Harvey Perry. And I don't know that this is exactly what happened, but the scenario is something like this. Harold Lloyd, in the movie, runs into a barn. Or Harold Lloyd's character runs into a barn. And without cutting the camera, without making an edit in the film, Harold Lloyd's character rides out on a galloping horse. The difference is that wasn't Harold Lloyd riding out on the horse. It was Harvey Perry, wearing Harold Lloyd's clothes, with Harold Lloyd's haircut, and Harold Lloyd's makeup. So the idea was that, well, how do we get this shot? Harold doesn't like that horse. That horse doesn't like Harold. Or Harold's having a bad day. He came in hungover and he doesn't want to ride the horse. Okay. Well, the stunt double, the cowboy, will hide in the barn, will roll the camera, Harold will run in, and then we switch the cowboy into the shot. He hops on the horse and rides out. And so that's how the cowboy switch was born. And is there a stunt performance? Sure. Riding a galloping horse, that could be a stunt. But what it really is a special effect, right? We're fooling the audience by, and taking advantage of the audience's willing suspension of disbelief, right? You guys want to see this character run into the barn and ride out on the dashing horse, and so that's what we believe is happening. It helps that he's wearing the same clothes. It helps that he looks like the guy. It helps that he has the same haircut and the same makeup. And it also helps that he's on the move and that we never see the two of them together. And it is plausible, we lose sight of him for just one moment as he steps behind that barn door. So, is it a stunt? Sure. Got a stunt double there, stunt double's working. But what it really is a special effect. And further, this idea that stuntmen and stunt performers are daredevils, and that there's this sort of, in that moment, in that shot of, Dar Robinson, Sharky's Machine, doing the high fall, that it's all on Dar. Or there are times when it is, it's about the man or about the woman, the performer. It's solely on them, but it's a little more holistic than that, because filmmaking, yes, there are performers in this performing art, but capturing this image and fooling the audience in the way that they're doing is more of a, it's a community effort, right? It's a group effort. You've got the costumes department that has to furnish a set of clothes that matches identically, including tears, aging, bullet holes. You have the wrangler that's got to provide the horse that'll perform when he's called upon to perform. On take one, when Harold Lloyd runs into that barn and pushes the door open, and that door swings, well, somebody's got to be in there to catch it so that it doesn't swing shut and the horse doesn't run into it. So maybe there's a props person in there with some monofilament fishing line to hold the door open and pull it too. So for this one stuntman to do his stunt, the whole crew is working to kind of achieve this gag that only exists to make the audience believe that Harold Lloyd was riding that galloping horse. And the cowboy switch, we use it today. I'm going to use it while I'm here in Tulsa on the Lowdown because it's so effective, right? Because we want to be fooled, right? It's part of the willing suspension of disbelief. It's part of the medium itself is a two-dimensional medium. And maybe this is a time to get into the demo. Riley, let me have you. So what I had the guys working on today is something called the picture punch, right? You guys all seen John Wayne movies? John Wayne is probably not a very nice guy. And I think he's probably not a very good actor, but the guy was a star. He was in some great movies, some of the best movies that have ever been made. And one of the things that made John Wayne a star in those movies is that he knew how to work the camera, right? If Riley and I do a fight scene, we're going to occupy a three-dimensional space. Where's that? Let's see. Let me put you right there, okay? We occupy a three-dimensional space. We'll do a fight scene in the three-dimensional space. All you guys will see in the audience at a movie theater is a two-dimensional image, right? The camera lens, if you guys mess with photography, you know, a long lens will flatten an image. All the images are flat on the movie screen. Even 3D movies, right? Even 3D technology is not truly 3D. It's just 2D images stacked to create the illusion of depth. But it's not truly a 3D image. So what I'm going to do now, let me come over here. Boom. So I'm going to hit Riley in the face. I'm going to miss him by a mile. And Aura, you got the big hands. Let me have you nap it. All right? Actually, but don't nap it on this one, okay? So Riley's came up and trained with us today. No big wreck. No, just to do a little head take, all right? So the camera is over. Let's see. That's a little better. I'm trying to line up this shot, and usually we don't have our cameras that high. All right, that's pretty good. Okay, so on who's going to give me action? I need you to give me action.
And action.
Boom, right? That probably looked like my fist crossed his face, right? Now, don't watch this, watch that. And Aura, nap this one, all right? Ready? It kind of works, right? I'll show you how much I was missing him by, right? So we do it, it's a real simple trick. It's very effective in fight stuff, which is, and you'll see it sometimes, you see guys working into the choreography, and it's the why I oughta, right? It's the Mickey Spillane, where I come in and I grab him, why I oughta, and I do this, so that he knows that I can't reach him with my fist. Because I'm not punching this way anyways. I'm punching across this frame. So I'm missing him by a good foot, right? But to this camera, boom, oh, boom, there we go. Thanks, David. That's the hero. Let's do one more with this tighter frame. Aura, you ready? Oh, yeah, sorry, I went early. Yeah, all right. Stand by, Aura. Anina, it's on you.
And action.
Pretty effective, right? It's the simplest of tricks. And you guys know I'm not hitting him. There's not a mark on him. The sound is coming from over there, but it works. Because we want to be entertained, right? We want to believe these stories. What happens when you see something in a movie that you don't like or that you don't believe? What do you say? It takes me out of it, right? Oh, yeah, I was watching such and such, and then, thank you, Riley, you can have a seat. you watching, you know, I was watching this and I thought it was great. And this guy came out and something, and it just took me completely out of it, right? But because of the performer and audience experience, because of that contract, that compact that we have, and because after making movies for 120 years now, we're getting pretty good at fooling the camera and fooling that lens. We're getting pretty good at these things. Some of the biggest stunts you've seen are legitimately big stunts, but some of them are just gags. We call these things gags. The shorthand, when I'm talking to my guys, I call them up, they say, what's the gag? Not what's the stunt, because it's a trick. We talk about it like we're Las Vegas magicians. And because we've gotten good enough at it, you know, we also have an obligation, and because I like these guys and they like me, and I have met their families and stuff, we have an obligation to gag it as much as possible, you know, to make it as safe as we can. If Kenny were to, if I needed Kenny to jump a motorcycle for me, and I need it to appear as though he's in the air for a long time, well, if Kenny's performing in a live show, Nitro Circus or something, and those guys, you know, they jump those bikes 100, 150 feet, right? Because he's got an audience at 360 degree, they're everywhere. They're underneath him, you know, they're down here. That's a pretty dangerous gag, right? But he does it. He shows up, he does it once, does it twice, gets his paycheck, moves on to the next thing. In the movie business, we never do anything once. You know, we don't even rehearse it once. We'll rehearse it 10 times before we do it. And I also know that because of the tools that I have in, namely the cameras that I have in my toolbox, that I don't have to ask Kenny to jump that bike 150 feet if we don't think it's safe. I can put 3 cameras under him, and he jumps 35 feet. And by the time we've cut together all the different angles, we can make that jump as long and as high as we want it to. It's still a jump, it's still a dangerous gag, right? He can still, you know, bury that front end and come off it and snap his collarbone. But it's not a meat wagon ride, you know, if he has a bad landing. Yeah, maybe it's a meat wagon ride. Maybe I just throw you in the back of the van. Yeah, that's kind of, you know, the big mythos and mythology about stunt performers and what they do is that it's this daredevilry, devil may care. You know, we've all been to the emergency room a bunch of times. We've all broken bones, and I mean that is true, right? But I don't think it's not like an extraordinary, like, gosh, I'm not a race car driver. I'm not even a professional football player. We don't get hurt as bad as those guys. Mostly what we're doing is we're part of this creating an illusion, and we're exploiting what cameras do, and we're exploiting what we can do editorially, and then we're also, you know, making changes in the physical world to help make these things safe. I'll give you guys one more example that goes back a long, long time. When you watch those John Ford Westerns, and you see those cowboys, those hungover cowboys, that it didn't take long for this to happen, but those cowboys realized, hey, you know, it's like, yeah, we get some movie work, that's good, you know, and every time I fall off the horse, it's, you know, they give me an extra $1 on top of my $5 in box lunch. But this ground out here in the desert, out here at Vasquez Rocks, it's really hard. And I don't remember back at the ranch, falling off horses, I don't remember it hurting that bad, because whenever I fall off horse at the ranch, I'm in the round pen, and Round pen is just a big old sand pit. And so what they discovered very rapidly is that, well, hey, if I know where I'm going to fall off this horse for John Ford, I can go out the night before with my buddies and a six-pack and some shovels, and we can dig it up, right? So when you go back and watch your old John Ford Westerns and your John Wayne movies, you'll see guys galloping across the tall grass prairie. And then when they get shot off their horse and they fall off and they hit the ground at 25 miles an hour, there's a big old cloud of sand, right? And you never notice it. But there's no sand pits in the tall grass prairie, you know? Those guys, it's once again, they've pulled a little sleight of hand in front of the camera with what you're seeing and replaced it with something that is safer and more repeatable. And it's the oldest trick in the book. They take a pad. Nowadays we talk about painting a pad. And I'm sorry I didn't bring any in, but I have some in my truck, where if I needed to have one of my guys, or especially if I needed to have an actor fall on this ground, 10 years ago, I would have had some high-dense foam, and I brought it to the paint department, and they would have had scenic artists in there paint match a piece of foam rubber to this floor, exactly, down to the grout lines, so that when the camera's right here, and we see, Ethan Hawke, boom, fall into frame, I know he's safe. I know he's protected, right? Nowadays, the last show I worked on, we didn't even need to do that. We have digital cameras and large format printing, and I had to have a guy fall on a hardwood floor, and the art director stood over the floor right here. It's like, oh, the guy's going to land right here. It's like, yeah, he's going to land right there. Great. Took a picture with whatever latest, greatest Samsung phone he's got, and he emailed that photograph to a young lady in the art department who printed off, a 6x8 sheet of sticky back vinyl. So, and then we laminated the pad. So we went from trying to approximate with a faux finish to 100% digital replica of the environment to make it safer for the real guy to do the action. It's a real guy still hitting the ground. There's no CGI to it. It's still a performance. But it's theater, right? It's fake. It's not real scenery. It's fake scenery. So in that way, even though we have, like AI, the looming, digital wasteland of AI that's going to destroy all life on the planet, very likely. Good luck, y'all. But that we have that doomsday fast approaching. But in the meantime, in this space, this entertainment industry, performance arts space, there's still a lot that's very similar to what the guys were doing on the first Westerns. Digging up a sand pit. I'm going to fall there tomorrow when I fall off my horse. I'm going to dig up all those rocks and that cactus and put down as much sand as I can. Make it so I can do it tomorrow. Yeah, that's kind of all I'm prepared to say. But I'm also happy to answer any questions, because you're the guys that came. I could talk all night. I don't know if it's going to be interesting.
That's fantastic. I learned so much, and it was such a great overview about what the industry is like and historical stuff. And I have some questions for you about your background in life, if that's okay, and then we'll open it up to audience questions. So tell us, what was 8-year-old Andy like, and what would he think of what you're doing today?
I think he'd be pretty tickled. I don't have a... 8-year-old Andy played outside a lot, played a lot in the woods, did a lot of fishing and camping. I do have some head injuries, so my memory is a little bit spotty. But I know like 3-4-year-old Andy would be stoked. My earliest memory is I couldn't have been more than 3 years old, watching Errol Flynn's Robin Hood on television. and insisting that my father and I have a sword fight in the living room afterwards, and then further insisting that we take it up and down the flight of stairs in our house because that's what I saw in the movie. You know, I was raised by television.
I love it. You had a vision even back then. How did you get your start in the industry?
I started, so when I was, the thing that really put legs under me as, you know, figuring out who I am as a person was high school drama club. And I was still a shy kid a little bit, but I started coming out of my shell and made the first real friends I'd had. And when I got into college, man, I was up against it, right? There's a lot of really talented people out there. And in some of these like performing arts spaces, you know, music, dance, theater, if you're not the best, there's not a lot of room for you, right? And I always felt like I couldn't, you know, I couldn't sing, I couldn't dance, I couldn't act, but I could act up. And I also, by that age, had been involved in the martial arts. So I'd had this idea that maybe I could be a stuntman, and I found a stunt school in Seattle, Washington, still there, as far as I know. There's a few of these around the country, of all of sort of varying merit and pedigree. And I went there and I trained for a little bit. Actually, before I did that, I, on our call board, at the end of every year, they would start putting up audition notices for like summer stock jobs, you know, Unto These Hills and places like that. And I answered an audition, I sent in a videotaped audition of 2 monologues and a fist fight for a Wild West theme park in southern Colorado called Buckskin Joe's Frontier Town and Mountain Gauge Railway. And I worked for 4 months as a gunfighter, doing 7 gunfights a day, a saloon show, and a hanging at 4:30. And it remains the best job I've ever had in my life. I made $6.25 an hour, and we did fights and gun, but we didn't know what knee pads were, you know, oh gosh, it was a lot of fun. And that was my first real job. And then I moved back to Georgia, came back to Georgia, where I'm from, and did all sorts of jobs, peripheral jobs in the movie business. You know, I had been in construction since I was 15 years old, so I built scenery, I built props. I did all these things until I finally had an opportunity. I had done some smaller stunt jobs, but my first real breakout job was under a man named Lonnie Smith. He's kind of the grand old man of Georgia stunts. Lonnie Smith on a show called The Walking Dead, season 2. And I got in there and could do the stuff, and Lonnie liked me, and it took off like a rocket.
And so that was kind of the moment that everything changed for you. Is that right?
Yeah, probably. I don't know. I read that question, and the thing is, in the movie business, you'll hear a lot of people in all these different departments on set, and those of you who might come work with us as PAs or background or cast or whatever you want to come do. I mean, we're in town for 4 months making this TV show. If you see a casting notice and want to come be an extra, it's boring, but it's also fun, and it is cool if you're at all curious about how the sausage is made. It's cool, and everybody on set is really nice, and they'll treat you really nice, and if they don't, tell me. But you'll hear people say that the thing they love about it is it's something different every day. I think that's not just true, but I think it's kind of that categorically that has to be like something about safety. So like I've had so many moments that changed the trajectory of my career or my life, but when you when you do what we do, guys, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you got to stay in the moment. Like, it's moment to moment. You know, I can't say that any one moment, like, gosh, there's so many, they're countless. But every moment, when you work in one of those jobs where it's something different every day, every moment is an opportunity to learn something. Any jerk can get a job on a movie set. Any clown can, like, bluff their way past security and get on set and get paid, right?
Don't try it though.
Don't. Well, I mean, Sterling doesn't care, but like, he'd probably give you a job. But any jerk can get on set and get paid. But if you can learn something, about what's going on, then it's like getting paid twice, right?
And that's so he's not kidding. Like, they do need extras for Lowdown. I know that many of you in this room have done that. And Andy's right. Like, a Sterling set is very different from other sets. People treat you really nicely. It's very respectful. I've even, like, allowed my child to go on Sterling set because you just trust them that much. And so if you're interested in seeing how the sausage is made, as I think you said, it's Lauren Waters is doing the casting for Lowdown, Loren Waters. You can look at her website and sign up for her database, and it is just a really cool experience to be on set and see how everything's happening, especially right here in Tulsa. You mentioned earlier that some things look really dangerous but are actually kind of simple, and the other way around. What kind of stunts look dangerous but really aren't that bad, and which ones might not seem that dangerous but really are kind of some of the most critical ones you do?
I mean, I hate to say it because it's one of my specialties, but the ones that aren't, and also because I've gotten hurt and other people have gotten hurt doing it, don't try any of these at home. Gosh. Fire gags have a reputation. Fire gags, when you set a man on fire, gosh, it looks like the end of the world. And in the old days, man, before they had some of the gear we have now, when they were just figuring this stuff out, they sent a lot of guys to the hospital doing fire gags. Nowadays, not to say that I haven't been to the hospital or that will never go again, but it's a plastic table.
There's a wood wall right over there.
Not a good sign, not a good omen.
Yeah.
When you do a fire stunt, the very first thing that you do is you strip off down to like your underpants and maybe a t-shirt, if the guy running it is nice to you. And you put on multiple layers of Nomex, which is a fire retardant fabric, Nomex long underwear. It's similar to what a fighter pilot or a race car driver wears, that has been soaked in a water-based gel that is also fire retardant. And sometimes that gel has been sitting out overnight in the back of somebody's truck. And when you put that stuff on, it's 38 degrees. And so for the 90% of the fire burn, you are freezing cold. And you are gross. This stuff has the consistency of like strawberry jam. It is gross. It is sticky. You are cold and wet and sticky and gross and shivering. And all these nice warm people are telling you what to do, and you have to do it. And if you don't do it right, you got to do it again, and that's even worse, because you get warm for a minute at the end, and then you got to get cold all over again. So I'm going to say, you know, that it's not undeserved, but the fire gags are probably safer than they look. What looks safe and is not safe. Gosh, I'm going to say, like, the motorcycle stuff. You know, like, there's a saying in the motorcycle community is no matter how fast, it could be your last, right? And because those guys can tell you, it's like, you know, like, well, I gotta go and crash this motorcycle. Well, there are degrees of crash. You know, like there's a low side and there's a high side. And most guys will tell you, it's like, well, if I got to pick, I'm going to pick the low side right? Because I get to put my hip down on the ground and kind of slide, and maybe I don't get crunched too bad. But if you do something like a high side, buddy, roll them dice. You know, it's really, really hard to control. And you know, when we're doing a big stair fall or so, like I'm doing a stair fall, I can wear pads everywhere. When Kenny's doing a motorcycle jump, a motorcycle gag, he can wear pads everywhere. There's no pad for this. There's no pad that, you know, that can 100% guarantee that you're not going to land with your head in your armpit. So I'm going to say the motorcycle guys have it hardest. They make it look easy, but there's.
Yeah. So, when you're doubling for an actor,
Yeah.
how much are you trying to emulate what that person acts like, their mannerisms, and how much are you just into the stunt?
Everything you can do. Everything you can do. I got a lot of great stories here. I'll keep it short. There's a great clip of an actor named Peter Weller. It's about 14 minutes long. It's up on YouTube. He's at a con somewhere, and he's talking about how he and a mime named Moni Yakim, who was a disciple of Marcel Marceau, created the movement for RoboCop, right? And I mean, there's no, all that movement that you see Peter Weller doing, that's not stop motion. That's not, there's no digital effects. That's him, and it's phenomenal. It's a phenomenal piece of physical acting. His stunt double was a guy named Russell Towery, and Russell Towery had to do the same thing with a fraction of the time, with a fraction of the training with Moni Yakim. And Russell's all over that movie, because they beat the crap out of RoboCop. You know, they set him on fire and push him down, you know, stairs, stuff like that. And I've had guys come out, gosh, I had Aura come out working for me, doubling Keith David. Sometimes we don't use him, and then sometimes it's like, hey, we got to wrap Keith so we can bring him back tomorrow. His contract says he gets, you know, this much off between, he gets a 12-hour turnaround. Hey, Aura, get in the car. You're just going to ride shotgun, right? You got to sit like him. Not every time we work are we doing a big stunt. Very frequently, what we're doing is we're just kind of insurance. You know, like, oh, we want the actor to do the whole fight if he can. All right, cool. What if he doesn't want to? I don't know. Bring in a double, right? And so the more you can emulate your actor, you know, Russell Towery went off. He was like a 20-year-old kid when that movie came to Dallas and hired him. And so he went off to have a fantastic career because he was an excellent mimic. You know, he could stand like the guy, move like the guy, walk like the guy, and in a very extreme environment, like that character. There's another young man, a guy named Austin Seifert, great stuntman, who had a nice little boost to his career recently because he was doubling an actor on a show, and the actor and the actress, after a couple of episodes, could not stand each other. So frequently, when they had to do dialogue scenes, and it's her coverage, and the camera would be behind that actor, and she's there, or she's there, he would storm off to the trailer, and they'd put Austin in. Up to and including smooching, right? So, I mean, we'd give him a bunch of grief for that, because like, hey, buddy, you signed up to get pushed downstairs, and instead you're getting paid the same to, like, you know, kiss the leading lady, which is totally the opposite of what it says in the song, right? So, yeah, as much as you can look like your guy, how he walks, you know, how he moves, how he rides a horse. Gosh, trying to match how somebody else rides a horse, that's tough. Yeah, acting is the biggest part of it. You have all the physical skills that are all important to doing whatever you're there to do safely, but fundamentally, you know, you are an actor. You're just acting with your, you know, with this instead of this.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to ask you one more question, and then let's take audience questions. So if you have a question, why don't you come walk up to this mic right here and get in a line, and we'll take questions. So what has been one of your biggest challenges, stunt challenges, as a stunt coordinator? How did you pull it off? What went well? What didn't work?
Oh, gosh. Biggest challenges. The biggest challenge, period, is probably like work-life balance issues. But I will say that one of the toughest gags I ever read in a script that I had to figure out how to do was a tractor turnover.
A what?
A tractor turnover.
Oh, okay.
You guys, I'm assuming in Oklahoma, I'm trying not to show any like bias or anything, but I'm sure some of you guys are familiar with like farm tractors.
Oh, we
yeah?
all have them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
you
how
guys,
we
like,
get to work,
that's-
right?
I saw
Yeah.
them all parked outside. That's
Yeah.
how you got here. So if you're familiar with farm tractors, did anybody know anybody that flipped one over? Yeah. How many of those people are still alive? None of them. It's absolutely one of the most dangerous kind of industrial accidents you can ever have because those things are so heavy and they're weighted so strangely that when they turn, they go. And I had to do a gag in a show where an actor is out riding. He's fixed the tractor. He's just brand new to the farm, and he is excited, and he's tooling around on his land on his tractor, but he doesn't really know that they're so tipsy, and he rides it up on the side of a hill, and he gets stuck, and he climbs off to look at it, and he's thinking about what to do, and he looks back at the house, and the thing's supposed to roll over and chase him all the way to the ground. And in the old days, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, maybe 20 years ago, they would have got a stuntman and a tractor, and he would have drove that thing until it turned over, and he would have jumped off it at the right time, and hopefully it was the right time. Otherwise, that would have been the end of that guy. But I was working for Disney, and Disney carries really big insurance policies, and they don't like paying on them like every other massive corporation. They don't want to pay. So like, all right. Plus, you know, like the Double's a buddy of mine. It's like, well, what can I do to make this as safe as we can? And through a synthesis of all the departments, special effects, and construction and greens and VFX, we built a tractor that would flip almost all the way over and then stop. And it's anchored to a massive piece of steel on the ground, so that we even did it with the actor, so that he could stand there and look at this thing and see that wheel that, you know, is hung up or whatever, or the bank that's starting to erode, and stand up and look. And then my friend Wayne on the button would go, and the thing would go like that. It was awesome. And then we did a pass. So we did several takes of that, the actor performing that scene. And then we took all of the tractor stuff away and put his stunt double in the same mark. And the camera had not moved. And the stunt double watched playback. He had a monitor he could see, so that he mimed, you know, he could like, oh, he did that, I'm going to do this. So it's this pantomime, you know, mirror routine. Boom, and then go all the way into a roll down the hill. And we did that until we were happy with that. And then he went away, and then we brought another tractor back that was just a rolling hunk of junk, and parked it there, and took a reach lift, an all-terrain forklift, and just went boop, and dumped it down the hill. So we have, from the same 2 camera angles, a sequence of shots that were all 100% real, that we then digitally spliced together so that it became one sequence. And it was, I think, pretty effective. And it was a lot of fun, you know, like you read stories about that, like building this piece of equipment that's going to take a 10,000-pound tractor and throw it halfway over and stop. Like, oh, that's what Steven Spielberg used to do back in the 90s. Well, people in the movie business still do it, and it's loads of fun when you have those resources and the time to do stuff like that. I don't know if we're going to do anything like that in downtown Tulsa, but we might.
If you do, you know who planned it. It's this guy.
Yeah.
All right, no audience questions? Is the mic freaking you out? Yeah, shout it out real loud.
Okay. For infant to miss stunts in movies that went wrong, like The Crow, The Twilight Zone, the movie, or
Yeah.
Rust. Gosh, what was your 2 cents of, well, I mean, in that, who do you think was to blame for those blunders? But
Yeah.
then again, there's maybe a lot of people who had to
So,
for that.
yeah, no, rather than address like individual events, because I'll talk about this idea of like, yeah, there are stunt accidents, right? On The Crow, a prop firearm became dangerously live, and Brandon Lee took a slug basically in the chest and died. Similar on Rust, for different reasons, right? Twilight Zone, the movie, there was pyrotechnics, a helicopter, and actors underneath the helicopter as pyrotechnics were going off, and the director was infamously screaming into the walkie-talkie, lower, lower, more, something like that. And those things happen. And I don't mean that in any kind of like dismissive, like they should have never happened. The young John Bernecker, the young man that died on Walking Dead, he was a friend of mine. You know, I worked with him 2 days prior to that. He had been injured in another accident that never should have happened several years prior to that, and I thought he was out of the business, and I saw him on set. In those situations, with Helena Hutchins and Russ, she was a camera operator. Vic Morrow and the 2 children that died on Twilight Zone the movie, they were actors. So not every fatality, they were involved in action sequences, but not every, like we're not the guys that assume all the risk. Gosh, we injure and cripple a lot of crew people in the movie business. Probably about as bad as any other heavy industry, right? Because what are we dealing with? We've got vehicles, we've got aircraft, sometimes we have pyrotechnics, although less now, have high voltage. You know, some of those lights that you see lighting up the movie set down on 6th Street when we're there at 3 in the morning on a Friday are running off, 480. You know, they're pushing, hundreds of volts or thousands of volts and hundreds of amps. I mean, they're wildly powerful instruments. We have a construction mill that's building scenery, and those guys have every saw and nail gun and ladder and all of those things that can send you to the emergency room you can imagine. I don't know that our injury rate is, like if we were a factory, we had all of those things going on, probably comparable. I don't know that we're any worse than that. It doesn't make it any less tragic. And then certainly when you have situations like the Rust shooting, like there never should have been live ammunition anywhere near those guns that were going on set, or Twilight Zone where you had, actors who didn't sign up for any of that, including minor children, die. There's a lot of egos on set, y'all, and there's a lot of money at stake, right? And they can do everything except make the sun come up or make the sun go down. And so what you have is you have a high reward, high pressure industry, frequently driven, led, crewed by people that are, there's no kind of like test for how well you do under pressure. Like if you want to go be a Navy pilot, if you don't do well under pressure, at some level you're going to wash out, right? You're like, hey buddy, sorry, your congratulations, you're a bosun's mate. We don't do that with DPs and directors. And once upon a time, and it's changing, and it's changed a lot even since I've been in, that level of volatility in the workplace was tolerated. You know, a boss that comes in and screams at their underlings, or treats women or people different from themselves in a harsh way. Well, that was just leadership, right? We don't put up with that so much anymore. It still happens, and you still hear about it, and it's distressing when you do. But you got a lot of money at stake. You have this shrinking window of time, right? Because you got to get these shots, or the studio is gonna, well, I don't know, go bust. And you have all these mechanical, all these moving parts, and people screaming into walkie-talkies because they're stressed out. They don't want to get fired. They don't want to get chewed out. And next thing you know, even though there's a room full of people that know better, everybody's tired, everybody's cold and wet, and somebody's being asked to do something that we all know they shouldn't do. And if nobody speaks up, the first 9 times, nothing bad happens. But that 10th time, that's when somebody goes to the emergency room. And so I've got guys that I work with that have this pet theory that, like, in a way, we've gotten so safe with some of these stunts that people don't take them seriously anymore. There's an incident a couple of years ago in LA where there's a car crash supposed to happen. We've been crashing cars for 100 years in the movie business. And one of the cars missed a mark, and it was an unmanned car. It was being pulled by a cable, and it somehow got off track and went way over this direction where nobody was supposed to be. And nobody was there, right? Because nobody was supposed to be there, and everybody said, don't be over there just in case something happens. Except 2 young producers had decided to go over there so they could get a better picture on their phone. And I believe one of them died and the other one lost his leg, right? Yeah. Sorry, that's kind of a down note.
No. Follow instructions, advocate for yourself.
If you see something, say something.
Yeah. That's great advice no matter what industry. All right, let's do one. We'll do 2 more questions. I don't want to keep us here too long. Right here in the front, Bohemian Rhapsody.
I was wondering if the path for a stunt woman into the field is the same, and how about the aging of both stuntmen and stunt women?
Stunt women, it's a harder job for stunt women because of the ingrained misogyny in the business, right? Hollywood is a terrible place to be a young woman, not because of the city in particular, but because of not Hollywood the city, Hollywood the industry. We look at who most of the actors are, and they are small. Society tells us that we like actresses, female actors, in a more correct way, that are 5 feet tall and 95 pounds. And when you are wearing a nightgown when you go down the stairs. These guys, they get to be whatever size they want because actors come in all kinds of sizes. But leading ladies tend to be small and slim, and so the women that double them have to starve themselves, and they have to take all the same hits with less clothes and less pads. Every one of them has my total admiration. They have a much harder job than I ever did. It's the way in is the same, which is that you sort of have to everybody that got in a different way, right? I can point to all these guys, and they all have a different way that first call came, like, hey, I need a guy. I came in kind of the back way through construction and props and doing all these things where I was on set. But you have to say, I'm going to be a stunt person. I'm going to train these skills. I'm going to let people know around me who I am and that I can do these skills and what I look like. And hopefully there will come a time when they need a guy that looks like me. And then they hire the guy that's better than me, that's already been a stuntman for 5 years, and he's doing the thing. But then somebody else needs a guy that looks like me, and they hire the second best guy in town that also looks like me. And then all the guys that look like me in town are working, and so there's nobody left, and they got to give me a shot. And then I go, and I hopefully do a good enough job that my first day in the business wasn't also my last. As far as aging, it's tough. But I'm very lucky that I get to do it.
I know I watched a documentary of aging and stuntwomen that I found very interesting, and they talked about the misogynistic side of it, particularly for women.
I think my friend Marion Green was a part of that.
It's a real good documentary.
Yeah, I've heard of that. She's told me about it, and she was either approached by it or she's in it. Yeah, it's tough. You know, we all have injuries, right? And maybe they're not any worse injuries than I would have if I stayed in construction. You know, Ven's a bull rider. I can't speak to his injuries. But, you know, the body, one of these days, they're going to invent a body that doesn't keep the score. And we're all going to sign up for that. But in the meantime, you know, we see a lot of stunt performers that as they sort of age out of hitting the ground and the high impact stunts, they move into setting up the stunts. You know, for every stunt performer you see flying through the air on a wire, there's 4 guys that you don't see that are part of that rigging crew. Every time you see a stuntman on fire, there's 2 to 4 guys that were part of stuntmen that were part of setting him up and putting that package together. Driving, unless you're driving a car crash, tends to be low impact. So that's the route that most people want to go. There are less jobs for that, and there are less jobs for stunt coordinating. So if you either try to move into those lower impact positions, you try to coordinate, or you hopefully save your money. And there's a lot, I mean, I know a lot of retired stuntmen and women that own restaurants. And some of them are doing pretty good at it.
That's right. A body that doesn't keep score. I'll take that now, and I don't even ride bulls or like get caught on fire. Last question, my colleague in the back.
Yeah. So I feel like lately Hollywood has had like stories that focus on stunt people,
Like The Fall Guy.
Hot Rod and like
Yeah.
One Time in Hollywood. Is there a movie that represents like to you that has like good representation, I guess?
So I still haven't seen Fall Guy. I've got a lot of friends that worked on it, and I know the guys that made it, and it's like, I'm sure it's a great movie. I know there's a lot of in-jokes, particularly for stunt performers. I thought season 3 of Only Murders in the Building was probably the most accurate representation of stuntmen. You know, like the guy that's like inviting himself to a party and like really, really desperate for work. You know, and kind of he's kind of shady, and he's kind of icky to be around. You know, stunt guys, most stuntmen, even stunt doubles. Gosh, unless you're the Captain America stunt double, and on a Captain America movie, there's going to be 2 or 3 stunt doubles. Gosh, on the Fall Guy, Gosling had 4 doubles. My buddy Justin Eaton just did the fights. There was a guy that just did the car hits. There was a guy that just did the driving. There was a guy that just did the high falls, right? Specialties. In the old days, you were expected to be more well-rounded. But nowadays, there's so many diverse skills that make up these action movies that you couldn't, you couldn't do them all. In the old days, when it was all westerns and cop stuff, if you could ride a horse, crash a car, do a fight, fall off the building, you were golden. But nowadays, we see free running and parkour, guys that can turn flips. And like, here I've got a motorcycle jumper, a fight guy, a cowboy, another fight guy, and a bull rider, right? And I wouldn't expect to ask any of those guys to learn how to ride the bull, and I wouldn't expect, asking any of those guys to learn how to, stick a 135-foot motorcycle jump. And the fight guys all have stuff to do in addition to the fights, the falling and the fire, it's, which is all to say that we're mostly unemployed, right? Like stunt guys are unemployed. And you guys got a movie you want to make? We'll help you out. We'll give you a good deal. And so, Hot Rod was just silly. I tried to watch that on a plane. I couldn't. You want to talk about what was the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? Yeah, there's a lot there too, right? Like, he's kind of a womanizer who maybe he kind of murdered his wife. That's reasonably accurate, unfortunately. I mean, the stunt community, here's one little piece of pseudo-uplifting social justice history that I'll try and leave you guys with. The stunt community, there's misogyny in the entertainment business. I'll brook no argument there. There is misogyny in the stunt community, right? Like, for the longest time, it was a boys' club. It was a good old boys' club, right? And that's why you have these, if you go looking at behind-the-scenes photos from the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, you see men in blonde wigs doubling Goldie Hawn, right? Because, there's no women that could crash this car. Well, they just wouldn't give them a chance. Or they wouldn't train them, They wouldn't give them an opportunity. And one of the lessons that I learned from Lonnie way 100 years ago is that, if you get where you want to be somewhere, you have an obligation to send the elevator back down, right? So you find those old behind-the-scenes photos of men, stuntmen, guys that we hold up on high pedestals as legends in the business, doing this depraved act of dressing like a woman to keep an actual woman from having a job, and it's fucked up, right? And they were also doing it with minorities, right? And we know this. We know that if you watch the old westerns and stuff, there's a lot of white guys playing a lot of Indians, playing a lot of black people and Mexicans, and I mean it's all over the place, and it's reprehensible, and even after that became gauche in Hollywood, and it was no longer allowed to, you were no longer allowed to cast a white actor as a person of color. It was still acceptable, because it was happening, in the wings, to use a white stuntman to double a performer of color. That went on until 80s, 90s, and there were no protections at all in the Screen Actors Guild contract that said you can't do that, right? That's unacceptable. If representation matters, and you have an obligation to open these jobs. If what we're doing is if we're telling stories, it's this thing that we all share, regardless of what culture you come from. We stand up and we act out our stories. You can't exclude certain people from that. You have to make these opportunities available to people. And if the people aren't there to do it, then by God, you train those people, right? You start the stunt schools. You have the workshops. You send the elevator back down. Until a guy named Billy Washington. Some of you guys might know Billy. He's still around. Billy Washington got together with 9, 10 other aspiring black stunt performers and started their own group. And they started going as a group together to hustle these sets and put themselves in front of these white stunt coordinators that were still doing what they called them paint downs on the day. You couldn't say blackface, because that would wind up in the papers. We don't do blackface on this show. We're doing a paint down, right? Like it's any better. And so they'd confront these guys and say, you need to give us a shot. And so that rule, what broke the color barrier in Hollywood, so to speak, and there's still a lot of color barriers to break in Hollywood, but that thing that happened in a black and white rule in the Screen Actors Guild contract came out of Billy Washington and his stunt guys, starting the Black Stuntmen's Association, which has nothing at all to do with Hot Rod. You know what? You know what? Screw hot.
That's okay. That's okay. And I hate to say it, but we are. Oh, is it quick?
Yeah, super quick.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was Debbie Evans the first woman to ever win the Lifetime Achievement Award at Taurus Award?
Oh, yeah.
Like 2 weeks ago?
I think so.
Yeah, so you're.
Wow.
Yeah, the first woman to win a Lifetime Achievement Award among the Taurus Foundation was like 2 weeks ago.
To your point.
It's
Great.
still a good old
Yeah.
boys club. Yeah.
Yeah, great observation. Before we say goodbye to Andy, and I know there probably are some more questions, so I'm sorry, but we are going to wrap it up for tonight. We have more film-related programming coming up this spring. You may be familiar with the Tulsa Film Collective, co-founded by Sterling Harjo, and their Pictures Up series, which utilizes professionals like Andy who are currently in town producing the Lowdown. So that series will be kicking off this spring, and it covers all kinds of topics. I mean, acting, makeup, props, sound, all kinds of things. We will be having a couple of those sessions here at the Center for Creativity, so make sure you're on our email list so that we can let you know about that. Like everything we do, that'll be free and open to the public. And tomorrow night, not film related, but we are having another workshop, same time, doors open at 5, starts at 5:30. It's threadless beadwork with Johnny Daikon. He is a member of the Muskogee Creek Nation, and he's going to teach us how to affix beads to 3D objects. It's like a low barrier of entry, but very tough to get right. If it, like, what do they say? A moment to learn, a lifetime to master, kind of thing. And all supplies are provided. That's free tomorrow night, so come back for that. Thank you so much to Andy. We appreciate you. Let's give him a big round of applause. And thanks to all of you. Come back to the Center for Creativity. Have a great night.